Get excited and chase your siblings around the house with a fully cooked turkey, because today we have another Industries video. Today I'll be doing something a little different, and I'll quickly rank all the buildings in the Industries app and see where they fit from best to worst. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new, so you can get any new content, and if you do enjoy today's video, then make sure to give the video a thumbs up, as that always helps me out. With all that being said, let's get into it. So starting off with the Refinery. So the Refinery, I'd say, is probably in the A tier, just because you can make a lot of different products from it, like aluminum, fine gold, copper, and you know it's useful for a lot of different products like cars and such. So yeah, definitely A tier. Now moving on to the Battery Factory. I put Battery Factory as maybe C tier, just because it only makes two things: battery cells and vehicle batteries, which is great for making electric cars, because electric cars are the most profitable thing to make in the game right now. But other than that, it's not very functional, so that's why I'm putting that in the C tier. Now up next is the Car Factory. This is obviously S tier. It's one of the best buildings in the game because electric cars are so profitable to make. It does require a huge supply chain to get there, but if you can't make electric cars, then maybe sports cars as well. Just don't waste any resources on the normal cars, because if you're at that point, then just make the sports cars. They're much more profitable. Next up is the Carpentry Factory. I'm not a huge fan of Carpentry supply chain, just because furniture isn't super profitable, and it does require a bunch of resources to make. So that's why I'm putting it as D tier. It does show up in quests, and the furniture shows up in quests. Not frequently, but every now and then, so you might be able to cash in there. But for me, D tier. Up next is the Chemical Plant. So I'd say Chemical Plant is a solid B tier. You can't really do too much with making money from the chemical plant directly, but there's just so many different items that the chemical plant makes, so it's very versatile and can be used for a lot of different things. So a solid B tier. Up next, I believe, is the Chip Factory. Chip Factory I'll put with the Battery Factory. You can make laptops and stuff, which are kind of profitable, but it just requires a lot of resources to make, and you need a lot of those for making a lot of volume as well. The chips are pretty helpful because you need those to make cars, but other than that, I don't know, C tier. Up next is the Coal Power Plant, I believe. Yes, so I'd put this as a B tier. If you're early game, then Coal Power Plant is very helpful, because all you need is a mine to make coal, and then you can power it, all your other factories with that coal, because of these coal power plants. But once you're in the late game, then this might drop down to E or F tier, just because you're going to be using nuclear plants. You aren't going to be using coal plants. So to start off, coal plants are pretty good, so that's why I'll put it up at the B tier. Up next is the Concrete and Cement Plant. I'm going to put this as A tier, because concrete and cement is very profitable because the costs are very low to make them. Concrete or cement only requires $1 or $2 for cost to make each item, and the cement plant is around the same, a little higher than that, or the concrete. So it's something that's very profitable to make and sell, even if you have to sell it at a discount in the market. But yeah, A tier. You can make a lot of it too, so lots of profit to be made there. Up next, I believe, is the Evaporation Plant. I'm going to put this as E tier. The only use of that is to really make the initial products for lithium batteries, which you need, or lithium, to make the batteries after that. So it's needed, but it doesn't have many products, and you can't use it for much other than that. So I'll just put that as E tier. After that is one of the new buildings that got introduced, which is the Fertilizer Plant, and unfortunately I'm going to put it as E tier as well, just because I haven't really gone into that supply chain yet, as it's not really super profitable to make fertilizer in large bags and that kind of thing. So E tier for now. Hopefully there's more uses in the future from that. After Fertilizer Plant is the Foundry, and Foundry I'll put as a solid B tier. You can make a lot of steel items from this, which is needed for car manufacturing, and lots of people, since they're making cars, will buy these steel items. So if you just want to focus on steel and not have to worry about making cars, then this is definitely a market that you can get into and make a decent amount of money, as there's lots of demand for those products. Up next is the Glassworks. Glassworks I'll put as D tier. You can make glass cups, and those are frequently in quest events, so you can make decent profit there. But I just feel like you can't make a ton of money because you can't make a lot of volume with these glass plants. So that's why D tier. Yeah. After Glassworks is the hazardous material mine. This I'd put as maybe D or E tier, just because it only makes two things: lead and then the input to make fuel rods, which is definitely needed for the nuclear plants, as you need the fuel rods for that. But other than that, it's just those two items, and you don't really need too many of these to power a bunch of nuclear plants. So D tier. After that is the Jewelry Factory, which is, in my mind, S tier, because it's so profitable to make gold jewelry and sell that. It does require a lot of capital, especially if you're keeping a lot of the gold jewelry in inventory. But if you make gold jewelry, or if you make gold bars from the recycling plant, then it's super profitable. Do not make sure that you don't make gold bars from gold ore in the mine. Do not do that, because it's way too expensive and you won't make money from gold jewelry. Silver jewelry is also pretty profitable to make, but if you're making jewelry, then just make gold jewelry and sell that. After that is the laboratory, and this might be our first F tier, because it's more of a nuisance to go to the lab and research different items, because all it does is make those items available for you to use after you research them in the laboratory. And other than that, there's not much other functionality of the laboratory. I'd love to see in future updates where maybe you have a week-long thing that you have to research in the lab to get some sort of production bonus, something that takes a while to do. But we'll see what they come up with in the future for the lab. But I do feel like it needs some sort of addition to it. After lab is the mine, and I'm putting the mine as A tier, just because it makes so many different products, and you need a lot of those products for making other items as well. So it's a very useful building, and honestly one of my huge bottlenecks is with mines, because I just keep going through iron ore, I keep going through everything. So yes, definitely A tier. Then after the mine is nuclear power plant, and yes, this is definitely S tier, because once you get to the mid to late game, you have enough money to start really building some of the more expensive buildings, then nuclear plant is where you want to go, because every building requires power, and as you get more buildings, your power consumption goes way up into the billions every day. So definitely lots of demand in the market for power, especially because it's always a quest item, quest event item. So it's definitely very useful, and lots of demand there. Next up is the oil refinery. So the oil refinery I'll put as E tier. The few products that are useful are definitely that, very useful. But a lot of the things that are made in the oil refinery have absolutely no function at all in the game. So I'm hoping that just means in the future there might be new items that are added, such as airplanes, which require some of the different types of fuel that are available in the oil refinery but not yet useful. So right now, put that as E tier. After oil refinery is the paper mill. So paper mill, I'll put as a solid B tier, just because paper is super profitable to make along with cement, where the costs aren't really that high to make it, but the margins are pretty high. There's also a decent amount of demand for it in the market, as the listings can require a bunch of it. So paper's pretty good. It shows up in the quest events every once in a while, so you can save up your paper until then. Next up is the recycling center. So recycling center I'd put as B as well, maybe C, but yeah, I'll stick in B. And that's because you can mainly make all the gold bars, all the gold bars that you need in the recycling plant. You definitely don't want to make gold bars from mines, and it's super profitable this way. If you turn all your unused slag into the gold bars, then that's good. You can also turn it into iron bars, but there's a lot more profit to be made from turning slag into gold bars and then into gold jewelry than there is of making any iron products. So yeah, solid B. After the recycling center is the sawmill, and again, I'm not really a huge fan of the furniture supply chain, so I'll put sawmill as D. I won't put it down to E because I'm not that mean, but yeah, just I don't really have much use for it. After that is the smelting plant, and I'll put that as A tier. Yeah, I'll put that as A tier, probably in between A and B. That might be more realistic. And that's because you use the smelting plant for everything. If you make lots of steel for cars and car items, then you're using a lot of smelting plants. So it's definitely very useful there. After smelting plant is the tree nursery. Again, I'm not really a huge fan of furniture supply chain, so I would put it in D, but since you can turn the wood into paper, I'll put it as C, as it is necessary for that. And finally, wells. Wells I'll put right next to mines, as it's one of the biggest bottlenecks for a late game player as of right now. Natural gas is a huge bottleneck for me, and also water gets taken down pretty quickly as well. So wells and mines are definitely a couple of those buildings that you always need. And yeah, that's it. So remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see similar videos in the same playlist. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. So check out the link down below if you want to see similar videos in the same playlist, and I'll see you guys in the next one.